Hello, it's just David here with my weekly video. Um, Sometimes people talk to me, perhaps a little pejoratively, about happy clappy churches, and I always slightly sort of wonder what they mean. I mean, generally it refers to sort of evangelical style churches, modern worship, happy, um, and clappy, and I think sometimes people think, well, that's not me. And yeah, I suppose it's not particularly a tradition that I come from, but actually, I'm pretty open about these things. I kind of, like all sorts of things. And indeed, I think happiness and joy has a large part of Christian worship. I'd hate it if people sort of said, well, your worship is always sort of, I don't know, dull or boring or um, somehow doesn't sort of lift up the soul or whatever. I mean, we might not use the words happy and clappy all the time, but yeah, I think that we can yeah, make a mistake here. So what am I trying to get at? Well, I'm trying to get at, I think, what the words happy and clappy, but particularly happy, might be trying to get at, which is a kind of mistake, but you can make the mistake the other way, is thinking that Christians and even Christian worship kind of has one flavor, and you get this sort of in cults and things, don't you? That everybody has to be happy all the time, or I mean, equally, there's sorts of Christianity where sort of appears to me everybody has to be sad all the time and sort of terribly penitent for their sins. And of course, it's not just religions, is it? I mean, there's a sense in which, isn't it, that other organizations feel the need sometimes to kind of peddle a certain sort of emotion, often to sell a product. So advertising, if you're drinking Coca-Cola, you will always be happy. You can't drink Coca-Cola if you feel sad. You can't go to McDonald's when you're feeling really down to have comfort food, because the advertising tells you, that it'll put a big smile on your face and you'll always be happy. And the same with, various other organizations and, sort of political parties. Sometimes, you can't, show people being knackered and falling asleep and being a bit grumpy at party conferences. They've always got to be energized and on message and all the rest of it. And of course, most of us know that the trouble is human life isn't like that. And so and we get a bit of this, I think, with the liturgical year. So at the moment, we're kind of doing Lent, and Lent is that time when we're kind of playing it down a bit. And of course, the interesting thing about liturgical year, it has the advantage that it takes you through the sort of range of human emotions. So there's Easter and Lent and Advent and Christmas, and then kind of ordinary time. But of course, how you personally might feel you might have wonderful news on the third Sunday of Lent, or you might have a grandchild born, or might fall in love or something, and so actually the third Sunday of Lent you're feeling terribly happy, and then you go to church and you have to sing sort of sad songs about how bad you've been. Equally, it could be Easter Day, everybody else is singing the Alleluia chorus, and you've had some terrible news. Somebody you love is ill or has died or something, and last thing you feel like doing. But nonetheless, it kind of, I think what it's there to do is to kind of take you through sort of the emotions of the Christian story, so that kind of they're accessible for when you need them. And of course, the best way I think we do that is through the Psalms. I mean, it's slightly difficult just because of the way, if you come to a Sunday parish Eucharist, some churches do have psalms. I know it's true. We tend not to, and perhaps we should have them a bit more often. But you don't have much of the Psalter. I think this is a problem, because the Psalter really has been sort of the backbone of worships for Christians and Jews, really, always. So if you look at other services apart from parish Eucharist on Sunday morning, there's a large amount of singing or saying the psalms. So when people used to go to matins and evensong, then there was a lot of psalms. And then during the week, if you say morning and evening prayer using the sort of daily prayer app, there's a fair chunk of it saying the psalms. And in monastic communities, I mean, really, they spend a lot of their time saying the psalms. I mean, there's 150 psalms. Some are quite long, and yet there are some communities who kind of go through the Psalter every day. I mean, it has to be said they probably don't do much else, but it really is that idea that the Psalter is the backbone of Christian worship, and we don't have enough of it. I think one of the reasons it's the backbone. I mean, it's in a way quite surprising because, of course, it's Old Testament. It doesn't mention Jesus or any of the things that we would see as sort of perhaps key to the Christian faith. But I think the great advantage it does is it has, there is a psalm for every mood. There's psalms of sort of lament and joy and hope, and in times of sickness, in times of health, and times of prosperity, and times of poverty. There really is a psalm for every mood. I mean, sometimes they're kind of quite angry psalms, psalms which give sort of vent to anger towards other people, and indeed towards God. I mean, there's plenty of times in the psalm when the psalmist is, obviously pretty fed up with God and expresses that quite so forthrightly. And I do think that's why the Psalms have been popular. They give the kind of vocabulary. They give the ability for Christians to not just be happy or clappy or sad, or it says here it is. Here is a psalm for every occasion, for every emotion. And I think that's really important. And one of the ways I say that at the moment is, I think, because at the moment we need to find a voice that is full of lament. I mean, there's some terrible things going on in the world at the moment, and we feel a variety of emotions, I think. I mean, I feel sort of anger, and I feel extraordinary sorrow, and I feel sort of helpless, and those perhaps aren't emotions that today we're given the means to express terribly well. I mean, perhaps there is a lot of pressure to be joyful, to be happy, when you look at some of the sort of things like advertising and that sort of thing. And actually, to be able to kind of give expression to those things is, I think, quite important. And to say also that they're legitimate. I mean, that it's all right to be angry, that it's all right to feel helpless, it's all right to feel sorrowful, it's all right to feel that you just can't believe this is happening. It's all right, even, as I say with the psalmist, almost to blame God for it, to say, God, why do you allow this? Why has this happened? Why has it come to this? Now, might well get into the argument of how much of it is within God's control or God's fault, but nonetheless, it's quite natural that Christians should think or feel that, even if it's only sort of temporarily. And I think we need a means of expression to say that. So, as I say, I think many people are feeling pretty low at the moment, and looking at the world around us, pretty sorrowful, pretty lamentful. And I think that's okay. And I think we just sometimes need to sit there and hold that. And as Christians, to say that's where we are at a time of sadness and grief. And of course, that can come in our personal lives at the moment, but perhaps in the world at the moment. And I do, if you are in the habit of sort of praying or reading your Bible, to look at the Psalms, maybe look at even the daily prayer app, which where you do sort of say a psalm each day, sometimes more than one. And just, if you're feeling that you need to sort of express those things, just to, turn to God. And yeah, there is no right emotion for Christians. I think that's the important thing. There's no way you should feel because you are a Christian. Christians, I think, feel the whole gamut of emotions, perhaps more deeply than other people, or at least as deeply. And yes, the scriptures, the Bible, Christian worship simply gives us the means not to kind of avoid them, but actually to express them. And I think, God understands those prayers and those cries and laments, and he treasures them. Thank you.